from South Buffalo. This is KRISTY SCHMITT, Director of Education at the Botanical Gardens. Thank you so much for joining me today for a nature walk for plants in your neighborhood. So what we're going to be looking for today is going to be some common plants that you would be able to find on a nice walk here in our wonderful city of good neighbors. So on your nature walk, as you're following along on the sidewalk, there's going to be different sections that you're going to see. So first off, you've got the sidewalk, then you've got folks' front lawns, and then you've got this part in between the sidewalk and the street. There's a bunch of different names for this part of land, and you could call it a tree lawn. It's a right-of-way kind of area, an easement as it were. So you can find lots of different things, lots of different trees, lots of different plants in this small space too. And here in Buffalo, especially in the city, during garden walk season, some folks have amazing gardens planted in this frequently unused space. Side streets, like my street, might have smaller areas of this space, but I also live close to one of our parkways, and our parkways in the city of Buffalo are beautiful and known for more of a public space. So that space would be a little bit larger on a parkway. Are you feeling lucky? Our next plant is the clover! And the genus for this is Trifolium. Clovers are going to usually have 3 leaves, hence the Latin name. Tri, meaning 3, 1, 2, 3, and folium, or folia, meaning leaves. Now, to be lucky, usually it's going to have 4 leaves, but there are some clovers that sometimes can be found that have even more leaves than that. Try to spend some time looking at a yard or lawn with lots of clovers. See if you can find any with 4 or more leaves. They're not super common, hence why they're considered to be lucky. Clovers are also great plants for pollinators. There's a little bit left of the flower here. It's not fully open, but clovers are going to have clusters of smaller flowers, which makes it a great way for pollinators to maximize their pollination visits and get a lot of nectar by not flying around to many different flowers. Clover can also be cultivated. It can be an alternative for lawns instead of grass, making it very lush and, again, helping to support those pollinators. It can also be a food crop for livestock. Now, there's a few different species of clover, but if you're thinking this looks a little bit like a shamrock is actually a different group of plants. So the genus for shamrocks is Oxalis. Different plants. So this plant right here is commonly found in cracks of sidewalks and on lawns, and is what some people do commonly consider to be a weed. This plant is called plantain, and this one is known for its very large oval-shaped leaves. They kind of maybe look a little bit like lettuce or spinach leaves. The leaves are very thick and can actually be a little bit stringy. So one fun trick that you can do is you can try to break apart the leaf, but you have to break it apart carefully. If you break it apart carefully, like what I've tried to do here, you can see that there is a little bit of the vein that is attached to the other part of the leaf that still hangs on. When I was little and making up my own common names for plants, I called this leaf string leaf. See if you can practice with one of the plantain leaves that you're probably likely going to find. Try to break it apart and see how long you can get those veins to stretch apart before they break. Plantain also has medicinal uses too. This was a common used plant that can help with inflammation. So what you want to do is you want to squish up that leaf so it's nice and juicy. And if you get bit by a mosquito, once you've got this nice, juicy, squished up plantain leaf, stick it right on to where your bug bite was, and it'll help with the inflammation and itching. However, I do want to caution you and let you know to be careful with a lot of these plants too, because if a neighbor does spray pesticides, then you just want to be careful when you're touching other plants, just so you don't get pesticides on you. So on your nature walk, it's a great idea to stop and look at the little things. And some little things I found right here on this maple are mosses. Take a look at these lovely little green plants. So mosses are plants that are a little bit misunderstood. So there's actually 16,000 or so different varieties of mosses. Even looking right here at the trunk of this tree, I can see what looks like 3 different kinds of moss. And I'm talking about these little green plants right here. Not this stuff. This stuff is a different thing called a lichen. What a lichen is an algae and a fungus hanging out together. You could say that they've taken a liking to each other, but last I heard their relationship was on the rocks. Lichens are different than mosses. Mosses are tiny green plants that get their food through the process of photosynthesis. They're green so they can get their energy from the sun. And there's so many different kinds. So like I said, there's at least 3 different kinds growing here on the side of the tree. But if we go through the lawn over here, there's even more different kinds of mosses. So just like how you can grow different plants in your garden, some different plants come up every year, some plants come up, oh well, you have to plant them again because they don't come back. Other plants like it sunny, other plants like it shady. Some plants prefer the clay soil like we have here in this area, others like it more dry. Mosses can be just as picky. Some mosses only like to live on rocks. Some mosses only live on lawns. Some mosses live on the roof of your house, but it's not going to be the same moss that lives in the crack of the sidewalk. They're so different, and it's such a fascinating world to explore. I'd recommend taking a magnifying glass with you if you have one handy and explore the world of mosses up close. It's absolutely fascinating. Have you ever come across these things on a walk outside in nature? These are the seeds of a maple tree, and specifically of a kind of maple called a silver maple. Now here in Buffalo, this kind of tree is often planted as a street tree between the sidewalk and the road. They're very, very large trees, and they can grow pretty quickly. But the super fun thing about these, a lot of people nickname them helicopters. They're actually technically called something that is a samara. Anyway, the fun thing that you can do with this, and it's a windy day, so hopefully it works. Woo! Oh, it did not really translate well to video, but it makes those spinning helicopter motions on the way down. My daughter, who's 3, she's getting really, really good at spinning these things. This tree here is another street tree that you might find in the city. This tree is called a linden tree, and there's actually quite a few varieties. This one is going to be the little leaf linden, but take a look at the leaves up close. They kind of make a heart shape if you're looking at them from this direction, I guess. But one of the best characteristics to tell a linden tree apart from some of the other trees are these skinny parts here. These are called bracts. So this bract helps to hold up what's going to open up to be the flowers. And the flowers are probably one of the best things about the linden tree. They smell sweet and amazing. They should be opening up in the next couple of weeks or so here in the Buffalo area. And they're another plant that's going to be so popular for pollinators. Another name for the linden tree is the basswood tree. So if you've ever heard of basswood honey, it tastes sweet and delicious. The bees love this tree. This plant, a lot of people are not fond of, especially if it's in your garden. This is the dandelion. So this plant is definitely considered to be a weed by most people. It was introduced from Europe It reproduces through lots and lots of seeds. So dandelions are going to have those bright yellow flowers that turn into wish makers of fluffy umbrella-like seeds. Those travel on the wind, and lots of them. So it makes it really weedy and invasive. This entire plant, though, does have a lot of good things going for it. The entire plant is edible. The greens contain vitamins A, C, and K. With the petals from the yellow part of the dandelion, you could make dandelion syrup. So, dandelions are also great for pollinators. So there's a lot of small flowers collected in the top of that yellow flower. They connected together to form a composite. So that means lots and lots of flowers together in one single head. So there's lots of nectar sources for a pollinator to drink from. It's also one of the earliest plants to flower. A dandelion-filled lawn usually happens closer to the end of May, starting here in the Buffalo area. Not a lot of flowers are out just yet. You might have some hyacinths or some tulips, but a lot of our plants really tend to flower in June or July. So it's a great food source for caterpillars as well. So other things with a dandelion, the common name comes from the French Dandelion, which means lion tooth. And you may also know, if you're trying to make flower crowns from the dandelions, that when you break off the stem, they've got some milky sap on the inside that's very latex-like. So take another look at the dandelion next time. Maybe you'll see it covered in pollinator friends. We're standing under the dense shade of another really popular planted street tree. This is another kind of maple. This one's different than that silver maple we saw earlier. This is a Norway maple. Norway maples resemble our state tree, the sugar maple. They look very similar. They've got 5 kind of lobes on the leaf. They've got curves, and they're about the same size. The Norway can get a little bit bigger. And then when you break a leaf off of the twig, it tends to have milky sap. Norway maples are fast growing and they can be invasive. They tend to have very thick shade, and here's what their seeds look like. That milky sap I mentioned on the base of the petiole of a Norway maple. It's kind of like when you break open a dandelion stem and it has that milk inside. So taking a walk in your neighborhood, not only can it be great for exercise and making sure you're staying moving, it's also a great way to explore, check out some of the cool plants beneath your feet or above your head. But you can also contribute to science and use the skills you've learned in school, such as math, to help create data points for scientists and scientific organizations to use to help impact science going forward. So it's something called citizen science. When you're making contributions and observations of data points, something as simple as, hey, maybe if you look at birds, you can be all, hey, I saw 3 birds here in the city of Buffalo today. They were all male cardinals. You can record that data on certain websites. We've got a list of them attached to this video. iNaturalist is a great one that focuses on everything in nature. There's also eBird and a whole wealth of other places where you can contribute your observations on your daily nature walks and make a difference in science. So here we are, back where we started. I want to thank you all for joining me today for this virtual nature walk in your neighborhood. Be sure the next time that you go outside to take a close look at some of the plants growing in between cracks in the sidewalk, or check out some of the cool trees that you might find throughout your neighborhood. So have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you soon. Bye.